we're coming to you live from IIM Calcutta, and ever since I was speaking to the students and faculty members over here, and ever since they heard that President Kalam died while he was giving his last lecture in their sister college, IIM Shillong, all of them have had very interesting things to say. Let me just introduce two faculty members who were here when President Kalam visited IIM campus in Calcutta in 2011. We have Professor Ashok Banerjee, he's a faculty member, and we also have the then Dean who organized the event for President Kalam, Shogot Ray, over here. Now, you had a nice story about President Kalam when he was visiting. Can you share that with our viewers?
Yeah, but before I get into the stories, I'd like to say that India today lost the greatest son in this century. I think it's a person who's been the epitome of modernity and science and spirituality combined, and all the virtues that you could think of in a human being he had been. So I had a good fortune to interact with him 4 or 5 times, but what I'll try to narrate a simple story that reflects what a great personality he was. We were organizing the Golden Jubilee function in 2011, 14th November, and he was supposed to inaugurate the function. So he was supposed to come at 10 o'clock, but he had a previous function in the morning in Raj Bhavan. So he came half an hour late, and we waited for inauguration to start at 10:30. But he was supposed to leave at 12. But by the time he finished his speech, it was 5 minutes to 12. But there are other functions still to be done in his presence. So that he agreed. So that's the time his protocol officer said that President Kalam, you have to leave now. So then he was about to leave, then I just approached him and said, sir, there are other things to be done, and your presence is very much required. We are supposed to release a film on the institute as a Golden Jubilee memorabilia. So he then turned back to the protocol officer. He said, look, yes, this is an honor. Half an hour delay was not because of them. And if I leave now, that means those capacity crowd in the auditorium who were waiting for me for 30 minutes, they should have left within 10 minutes or 20 minutes before I arrived. So I have to stay back. So he stayed back.
Was the protocol officer pleased or unpleased?
No, but he has that charm, and the way he said, this protocol officer also smiled, and it was not offensive.
Probably
because that's sort of
that
true spirit of President Kalam. So he was never made of remarks which might sound offensive, but the way he used to do it, it's so disarming.
Professor Banerjee, what do you remember about that meeting?
Yeah, so in that year I was sitting and listening to his speech in the auditorium, and what attracted me most is his positivity. And I remember he said that to the students, addressing students, he said that, whatever happens to either side of Atlantic, don't get worried about. You do your job. Don't think what's happening in Europe and US. You should shine, and India should shine ahead. So
what was the theme of his speech? That was the theme?
No, his theme was his general address to the students, talking about youthfulness, innovation, and he was also referring to that igniting of minds and the kind of stuff they can do. So
just to tell our viewers that as the teachers were telling me that just outside this auditorium, there is a little plant that he planted during his visit over here.
Yeah, so he planted a sapling here, and it's still there, and the tree is growing, and that's what I said, that he was an epitome of whatever is positive in life.
Mr. Mitra, you were talking about his last moments and how you felt that was a perfect ending to the life that he lived. Tell us why.
Yeah, ironically, the last time I saw him was in IIM Shillong, and this was
in IIM Shillong itself?
Yes. And
when was this?
This was 2 years back, and he was the chief guest of a sustainability conference. I was a speaker. And what struck me, again, we're Institute of Management. We're about managing and leading people. But I think the best way to manage and lead is to inspire. And he was truly inspirational. And there are 3 things. One is, as he said, there was a huge amount of optimism and positivity. There was an amazing amount of energy. The other thing about him was very authentic. He was unlike anyone else. And you could see, he could never be, nothing about him was false. He was so different because he didn't. And all the power and growth never spoiled him. He never lost the real touch. And the other thing was his work ethic. And I remember Shugota saying that he actually mentioned that, don't have a holiday, in fact, work an extra day. That was really his work ethic. And I think that's proven by the way he died. A lot of us who want to, do well in life and grow rich and want to retire. Some people want to grow rich early and retire early. And I personally believe that, you know, as long as you live in this earth, you should be productive and you should do something. And imagine, at the age of 84, going all the way up to the hills and dying while giving a lecture. There couldn't be a better death.
Never took a day off, really,
Yeah.
even after he left. And actually, that's the theme which has taken on, being talked about a lot in the social media circles as well, that when President Kalam stood for, as you said, working extra, and even saying in his lifetime that people should work an extra day and not commemorating by taking a day off. I just wanted to pass it to the students over here. When you hear that for his morning, when people are marking it, the MPs have asked for, you know, they're not going to work tomorrow as well because they want to attend his funeral. Do you think that it's befitting?
I think it goes completely against what Dr. Kalam stood for, because as we just discussed, he always said that work an extra day. So I think right now he would be really disappointed if the MPs took a day off and not worked on that one day.
Does everyone agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. I think he stood for hard work as an ethic, and he had actually got to where he was through hard work. And at the end of the day, the best way we could honor him would be to work harder and work better at what we are doing.
Vinay Jajal, do you think as an entrepreneur and as someone who is involved with a startup, do you think he in a way, you know, kind of stood for that person who reinvents himself? He was a scientist, first of all he came from very modest means, made his way from a scientist, went on to become a politician, a very successful president, and then again at the age, as you said, post his 70s and into his 80s, reinvented himself again and didn't let the fact that he's retired stop him from living his life and still doing things.
Absolutely. I think President Kalam has been an inspiration for me, especially for the mission that we've set for ourselves. I remember reading his book on a train when we just had started up, and just the struggle that he went through meant so much, and at that point we were really challenged by the whole idea of inequity within India, the rural and urban divide, and for him to have come from the community and from the background that he came from, and doing what he did, believing in the idea of India and India shining, and that's truly what I believe in India shining, and not the farce India shining that we project outside. So for me, he's an absolute inspiration, and I mean, and he will always stay alive, I think, in all our hearts.
And just reading his book did that for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I didn't have the opportunity to meet him ever, but his book, and of course going through some of his ideas and interviews. More recently, he came up with an organization to strengthen rural communities in rural India. So I've heard about that a little bit. So it's just absolutely inspirational.
Professor Banerjee, how rare is it for someone like that in public office to inspire your students in this manner? Have you heard them speak about any other public figure like this? When was the last time we had someone in public office who inspired someone like that? And I mean, Vinay's case, Vinay is an entrepreneur, and him saying, giving so much credit to President Kalam just by his book. When was the last time we had someone in public office who did that?
I mean, it's difficult to recall, and I think because he was a teacher at heart, you know, he connects very well with the young minds, and that was his charm, you know. So age didn't matter, and even before he became, you know, president, he was teaching, and after he demitted the office, he was teaching. See, he may be physically he aged, but his mind was always young, and his simplicity, and as I said earlier, that, you know, the positivity, that's what is attractive. So if you ask me, the last figure which you recall students were, you know, reminiscence about, very difficult to draw a parallel.
Very difficult to draw a parallel, and that's really impressive. You wanted to add to that?
Yeah. So one major reason why he's been able to connect with students so well is that I remember from an incident that we had written to him when I was 12 years old about a collection of poems that me and a few of my friends had written. And he had written back to us saying that what he found good about the poems and which ones did he like and so on. And that was, and with a couple of inspirational words asking us to follow our passion. So that is somewhere, we've only a bunch of 12-year-olds and he had written to us. So that's the reason probably why our generation respects him so much.
He was the president at that time.
Yeah, he was the president.
And I think he's the person, I remember as a reporter, covering Rashtrapati Bhavan, we started following that story about how he's writing to people directly. Before, it would be the staff of Rashtrapati Bhavan who would answer and do that. And he was the president who put it up on a website and who encouraged children to write. And you're one of those children who wrote to him.
Yes, so we wrote to him through our school, and he was really encouraging, and we wrote back to us within a week's time. So that was.
And how did you know it was him who replied and not his staff members?
Because it was he had signed it, and let's say we had that faith in we had that faith that he would write. If somebody's writing back to us within a week, it has to be President Kalam.